Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Welcome, everybody. If you're listening on Facebook today, we go live on Facebook on Saturdays and Sundays. Saturdays are question days. If you're new to this whole program, this is our question day of our daily podcast, Wisdom of the Sages. My name is Raghunath, and I'm here with Kaustubha Das, senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, and old buddy of mine from the old school days of hanging out in New York City in the early 80s. So these are question days. This is when people write in questions, and we try our best to give our answers that have something to do with the Vedic paradigm of reality, or what we sort of know as yoga philosophy or yoga life, and how to take these esoteric teachings and apply them and make them relevant and practical. So it's sort of a fun day. It's my favorite day of the week, next to tomorrow, which is special guest day. We also start at 8 o'clock, Monday through Friday, 5 a.m.
Shall we announce our guest?
Yeah, we'll announce our guest. He's an old friend of ours from, truthfully, I literally haven't spoken to the guy in many, many years. I knew him when he was like a kid, but think about it. Now he's like a professor. Isn't it weird when you know a kid and then they become a professor?
They went right past us.
They went right over my head to a professor, and I still feel like a kid.
Yeah.
Where's he a professor at?
He's a professor at Bridgewater State University in Massachusetts. His name is Matthew Dasty. We also know him as Mahamuni. And he's a professor of philosophy at Bridgewater State University. But
I knew him as a young brahmachari monk who was like, even then, he was one of those kids. He was like 17 or something, and I was like 26. And I was like, this kid's so smart.
He's smarter than me.
He's smarter than me, and he's only 17. What did I do so wrong?
Yeah, he's got a great brain. And you know what his specialty is as a professor? Huh? Thinking, yeah. But his specialty is Nyaya, which is like the, an ancient Vedic, study of logic.
Logic and debate. Right?
Yeah, it's logic and debate. It's largely my understanding, and he can clarify this, but like Nyaya was in many ways a response to monistic thought. It's establishing the existence of God based on logic, but a very ancient tradition of it.
Oh, maybe we should come up with some good atheistic questions. I'm going to research good atheistic questions and try to stump the professor and prove I'm quite smarter than him after all.
Go for it. Give it a try. Yeah, put him to the test. So in any case, we'll have Professor Matthew Dasty tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. It'll be a good show. I'm looking. We're going to talk about Nyaya, but we're going to talk about Bhagavad Gita, and another topic that he's particularly interested in is karma yoga. So we're gonna get into all that.
All right. Well, that's great. I'm going to give a shout out to those people who are coming to Colombia with me for the Wisdom Retreat. Kaustubha can't make it, and we're sad for that. But Doyal wrote me yesterday, and Doyal wants to come. Okay. And Uragai wrote me. I don't know if it's a surprise, but Damodar Priya is going to go. Okay. So I'm happy for the association. And that's January 19th. So if you're interested, check out my website. I'm doing the last call today and tomorrow for people who want to go and get away from the cold. January 19th to the 30th. I'm also taking a big gang of pilgrims to Nepal. Check my website for that, raghunath.yoga. It's half trekking, whitewater rafting, and through all these sacred places. I learned so much about Nepal yesterday. It was like an ancient kingdom. These kings like preserved Vedic teachings, and the Mughal invasion, they never touched them. So it's like one of these sacred lands. Gautama Buddha was there, so there's tons of Buddhist shrines and stupas. Have you ever been there?
No, I've never been there.
Gandaki River flows. That's where you get the Shalagram Shilas.
Yeah.
That's where Gopal Bhatt Goswami went, and he put his, that story, put his bathing, what are those Kamadalu pots?
Kamadalu.
And he
Like
put
a
it just in the
water
water
pot.
to get some water, and all these Shalagram Shilas, these sacred stones, came into the pot. So he's like, this is weird. Dumped them out, put his bathing pot back in. All these Shalagram Shilas came in. So he said, I'm going to take this as a sign. And he went back and he worshiped these Shilas, these stones, which is one of the few places where you're not invoking God to enter the stone. They say that Lord Vishnu is already in these stones. And there's a whole special sacred literature about these stones from the Gandaki River. And so when all the Goswamis were worshiping these deities of Krishna, he was worshiping these stone deities, but he was sort of sad because he was like, you know what? They get to dress the deity with little crowns and little outfits. Yeah, they get to dress, Govinda Ji and Madha Mohan and Radha Madhava. And he was lamenting. And when a great soul laments for something like, you can't really dress those stone deities because sometimes they put little smiles faces on them and put some sandalwood paste.
You can decorate them, but not.
You decorate them, but he was a little
extent.
sad.
Yeah.
And Krishna heard that sadness in his heart, and one of those deities manifested into an actual.
Was it one of them, or did they all kind of become?
No, just one. Just one became.
Sure. The others
Radha
are still
Raman.
around.
Yeah, Radha Raman.
No, but the other.
The other deities are there, and they're kept in a
Separately.
back temple at the Radha Raman temple.
Okay. I thought they all became one or something like that.
No, and Radha is worshipped with a crown, a little crown.
Well, do you know why that is?
Why?
You see, because that deity of Radha Raman, and by the way, Radha Raman temple in Vrindavan is just like such a fantastic place.
Fantastic place.
So because the deity of Krishna wasn't carved, it was a self-manifest deity. It manifested on its own. So they're waiting for Radha to manifest. They won't carve a deity of Radha and put it there.
Ooh,
it has to be It has to be a self-manifest form of Radha. So instead of putting a carved deity of Radharani there, they just place a crown and they worship that crown as Radha.
They're waiting her to manifest.
Yeah,
That's
pray,
awesome.
Pray for Radha to manifest there.
Hey, Krishna manifested from a stone. It's unbelievable. It's a beautiful deity.
So I'm saying that perhaps if you pray enough.
Let's go to the Gandaki and put our Kamandalus in the water, and maybe we'll get a Radharani.
It's possible. Go for it.
I'm gonna. So anyway, that's the
Questions.
latest.
Questions.
So let's dive into the questions. Okay, I'm going to start with you, and it's from our good friend Uddhava Sandesh.
He's our man.
He's our man. He's a great guy. He's like, man, I forget his actual Instagram handle, but it's like the Skate Monk or something like that.
Yeah, Skate Monk. I think that's
Skate Monk. But he helps us. He's a big helper on the show. He does a lot of video stuff for us. But this is for you, Kaustubha.
All right.
I'm always like, why do they want Kaustubha, not me?
Some of them are to you.
I'm so envious. What's the matter with me?
Some of them are written directly to you.
Kaustubha, how does one find balance between overly strict and overly loose in one's day-to-day life? Here's a guy coming right out of the monk ashram. That's a hard transition to do because you're very, very strict in what you do, what you consume, how you live. And all of a sudden now you're like, you're free. You know, it can be very challenging.
Can be.
For example, I work from home, so I'm practically listening to classes like Wisdom of the Sages or Prabhupada lectures practically every day while working at home.
Okay.
And when I'm out and about, I have headphones in so I can keep the vibration going.
All right.
Smart. That being said, sometimes I feel like I just need a break. I need to watch some stupid show or something in order to keep my practice sustainable.
What show do you think he's watching?
Breaking Bad. I don't know. I don't know that many shows. Is there such a thing as a healthy dose of Maya? Can I just not have Maya as the main course, but just like sprinkled on top of my Krishna?
A healthy dose, like
A healthy dose, like a
a shot glass
pepper my spiritual life with a little bit of Maya. Or is it just due to one's conditioning, modes, varna, etc.? Any thoughts would be appreciated.
Okay.
Great
yeah,
question.
it is a great question. I like the way that you framed it too, because for those that don't know, this friend of ours, he's lived as a monk. I don't know for how long, but for some years, I would assume. And then you kind of, you step outside of that very, what's the word?
Cloistered.
Well, okay, cloistered, and kind of everything's narrowed down for you. You don't have a television in the ashram, so that doesn't even become a question. And you've got people there, and you got a schedule, and all your time's full, and now you're out on your own. And so how
There's no
strict am I gonna be?
brahmacharis, right?
Huh?
Looking over your shoulder. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah. So let me start here. I would suggest that there is no such thing as a healthy dose of Maya. Right? It's not healthy. In other words, if the idea is, and Raghunath, you often kind of use a metaphor of, what we consume as being like either health food or junk food in terms of, the media consumption that we do and the people that we associate with, and et cetera, right? So I think that is a helpful metaphor to say, certain things that we may consume, whether it be on the internet or on Netflix or, the people that we associate with, is like healthy food. It's nourishing our spiritual growth.
Right.
And other types of association is like junk food. It's actually unhealthy, right? It may give us there may be some taste in it, but it actually has no nutritional value and can actually be counterproductive. And so when you say, is there a healthy dose? I'd say, no, it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy to consume. But this is the point. You have to figure out, let's put it this way. There's no healthy dose of junk food. But, our circumstances are tough in this world. We live in a world where there's no real supportive culture for bhakti yoga, for the most part. I mean, that's what these, temples or centers, like a center like the Bhakti Center, is really meant to help provide that, right? Where I can come and hopefully find entertainment. We feel, our mind is calling out for some form of entertainment, right? Even on a daily basis. And we don't live in a village where every evening we get together and do kirtan together, and then someone jumps up and does a poetic reading, or someone puts on a drama, that are all like healthy food to consume, right? We don't have that world. And we also don't have, like the spiritually conscious network where everything is like, you can sit down and watch a television show that's going to like be spiritually nourishing, If we did have that, I think someone as sincere as Uddhava Sandesh would probably just lose any interest in the junk food, right?
Kaustubha, you know what you should do? You should put a
Sorry, Neva.
list. You should put a list on the website or something, on our new website, wisdomofthesages.com. Maybe a list of sort of like conscious movies, and people could write them in too. Like, there are movies that are entertainment, but they're thought provoking, or they're sort of deep. What do you think about that?
I think
don't
such
know.
a list can be healthy, but I guess there may be a lot of debate on what qualifies as junk food and what
Well,
qualifies
that's why
as
we're asking
nourishing.
you. That's why I'm asking you.
That means I probably have to watch them all to find out.
Well, I'm sure you could probably bring out some that,
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure you could too. But I think that kind of thing could be helpful. Maybe on Patreon or on the Discord channel or something like that. But let me say this. If we had developed that full spiritual taste, if we were entirely spiritually healthy, we would not have any interest in those things. But we're developing, we're practicing, we're not there yet. And it can be hard to go cold turkey, It takes steps to regulate it. And that's the point, regulate it. Like, if we don't have that taste where we're completely ready to go cold turkey, then I would say regulate it. Like, in other words, don't let it take over you. Get control of it, which means that we have to figure out, okay, maybe I have a little taste for the junk food. how am I going to narrow it down so that it doesn't take over? There's this example of when we had Shamasundar on the show. Some I guess it was in the summer.
That's
But
a great show, by the way. If you ever
yeah,
missed that, go
that's
back
good.
and find the Shama Sundar interview.
Yeah. So he tells a story of how he was smoking cigarettes. He had a I guess an addiction to cigarettes, and Srila Prabhupada found out about it, or he brought it to Srila Prabhupada. Hey, I'm kind of like I can't give up cigarettes.
Right.
And what he said was, how much do you smoke? And he said a pack a day or something like that. And he said, so every day, smoke one less. Okay, you smoke one pack today. Smoke just like how many cigarettes are in a pack? Like 30 or something like that.
32. I'm not sure.
I don't know. But he says, let's say it's 30. So then the next day smoke 29, and then the next day smoke 28. And he says, and if you keep doing that and practicing your bhakti and meditating on you going in kirtan and hearing from Bhagavad Gita and this and that, by the time you're done, you're just going to let it go. And he said he did it, and it actually worked. So he, rather than Prabhupada saying that's just junk food, cut it out now.
Right.
Prabhupada had an idea of the way that the mind works, and he gave him a practical path to follow. And so I think, when it comes to things like, for practicing bhakti yogis that aren't living in ashrams and we hanker for some form of entertainment, well, then if you want to get serious, here's one approach. You can say, well, what am I consuming? Like if I have a desire at the end of the day to relax and watch some kind of show, then let me consider what shows I'll watch and which ones I won't, right? Let me make some effort to kind of narrow it down to things that won't be so potentially destructive. Because what's going to happen is if you're going to watch shows that let's say they have a lot of sex, a lot of violence, a lot, these kind of things, what you'll find is that when you get to the priority in your life, which is say like meditating on the holy name, that those images come back into your mind, right? And so you're losing your highest priority is now being invaded by this junk food. That's got to become annoying. And so what you're going to do is you're going to try to like watch those things that don't create those kind of impressions. That's one thing you can do. And another thing you do is if you find, hey, actually, when I do a little audit of my spare time, I find that I'm actually watching 4 hours of television a day. Now that's significant, right? That's like a lot of time that's being wasted that could be engaged. It's not like I'm just getting a little bit of release, Actually, it's beginning to take over serious chunks of my life. Then one may say, you know what, I want to limit that. I want to decrease it. I want to narrow it down to 3 and then 2 and then 1 and then a half, that's another way to approach it. So these are just practical ideas of how not to let these things take over your life.
Regulation.
Regulation. And regulation is how yoga is practiced. That's the whole Varnashram system is based on this. The whole, institution of marriage is based on this. It's a practical way to move towards your goal effectively. But beyond that, I'll just add one other detail, and that is when it comes to bhakti yoga as compared to other forms of yoga, I say like jnana yoga or something like that. The path of deep renunciation manifests in such a way, like my deep renunciation will manifest as a secondary result of my growing attachment to God, right? It's not something that I do and struggle with, but it's as I accept God into my life and become thrilled and develop that taste, I naturally lose the taste for these other distractions. And so, I think in even the beginning of that can manifest in a way where if your taste for hearing Bhagavatam, your taste for kirtan, your taste for thinking about Krishna, that person, as that begins to grow in your heart, then in your heart, that time you waste with the junk food, it'll begin to feel a little bit like you're betraying the person that you love. Like why? Why am I? It's God, it's Krishna that I have attachment for, and now I'm kind of saying I don't want you, I want this, and that's a very beautiful, powerful transform. That's a little sprout of real genuine rag, real genuine bhakti developing. So look for that. Try to minimize the damage, whether it's through the quality of what you're watching or the quantity of what you're watching. Try to improve the quality, try to reduce the quantity, and really, try to build up that attachment through good, solid, regular. Try to increase the quality and increase the attachment, or the time that you spend with the quality health food, and you'll be able to let it go eventually.
Good answer.
Right?
Good
All
answer.
right. Thank
Family
you.
Feud.
Thank you.
That's a good answer.
Now I got a
It's a
question.
slippery slope coming out of that brahmachari ashram.
It sure is. It sure
I
is.
think perhaps to even be a brahmachari, you might be a little bit extremist. What do you think? You're pretty extreme in your choices.
Well, I guess it depends what you mean by I think the term extremist sounds unhealthy, right? But I don't think it's necessarily unhealthy.
Sure, but you may want to watch that pendulum as you extremely enter into the other world as well. It's a slippery slope, as we say.
Okay. Now I got a question for you, and this is coming from an old friend, Bruna, right? She goes back.
Bruna G, she's been listening to the podcast from before. She's from Brazil.
From Brazil, but currently living in...
I don't know. I think she lives in Ireland or
I think England or something like that. Ireland? Where is
I don't know.
Mara, you know?
I think she's in Ireland.
Ireland, okay.
She came to a show. She's like a farmer. She's like a permaculture person.
Cool.
Yeah.
And she goes back before Wisdom of Sages to Super Soul Sacred Sangha.
Yeah, she used to listen to Super Soul Sacred
She's
Sangha.
probably into hardcore too. She's from the hardcore.
Oh, she is. She came to a hardcore show.
There you go.
In England, I think we did.
All right.
Yeah. So hi, Bruna G.
Now, we received this question on Christmas Day, so it came a little bit late, but it's a Christmas-related question.
All right.
All right. She says, I have a question about Christmas. I'm mostly a super positive person, but I can't deal very well with Christmas time. Sounds like some kind of, what do they call that
Scrooge
creature? Grinch.
McDuck.
It's like a
Scrooge
Grinch.
McDuck.
Grinch. Okay.
All this giving and giving and giving.
That makes me sick.
Little tiny Tim.
She says, I never really understood why people have to translate their love through objects and pick Jesus' birthday. At home, nobody ever talked about Jesus at Christmas time. Santa always took over the scene. Now that I work in retail, I feel miserable every year. I try to think of it as a big mental and physical challenge that I can overcome, but in the end, I can only think about getting home and trying to forget it. Even if I quit my job, even if I quit my job, I'll know what people undertake on this date, and it makes it impossible for me to be part of it. All right, here's my question. My question is, does it make sense to rejoice in my family's happiness, even if I don't agree with this holiday? How do I change this is, I think, the most important part of the question. How do I change the lenses I'm using to see it? I'll also use this email to take the chance to thank you for being there for me all this year. This podcast has changed my life to the point that I can't even remember who I was before. Listening to you gave me so much strength. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Bruna G.
Okay,
question.
how does Bruna change her lenses? Or should she keep them exactly as they are? Maybe she's on the right track. Maybe she's the only one that gets it.
Well, I get it. We've commercialized Thanksgiving. This is the famous Peanuts episode. How do you commercialize Thanksgiving? Not Thanksgiving, but Christmas. At any moment, we can upcycle the holiday. Whatever it's become, we can upcycle it to be something better. And if she's feeling like this is mundane, it's boring, it's based on consumption, change it. I don't know how much ability she does have to change, but we always have some personal ability to make different choices. For example, it's the birth of a saint. It's the birth of a saint, and not Saint Nicholas. It's the birth of Jesus Christ. I chose this year to read from the Bible this year, and I think it's just important to re-impregnate the idea of holy people, and that's why there's an original idea of why we're here in the first place. My wife did a thing where she wants to spend quality time with the children. So she was going through all month, she was going through different things like, okay, we're going to bake together and we're going to, and it might even be sort of, okay, we're going to, bake Christmas cookies or decorate together. And, or, she taught my son how to rap really nicely. But what it actually becomes is just like bonding time with your family. It doesn't have to be all about, I want this, I want this, I want this. And the parents are just like losing their mind and buying junk. It also could be, look what I've created. And you could create your own presents. I think when you create your own presents, it's a sign of endeavor and hard work, and actually love goes into it as you're creating it for the person. So I think you can always upgrade it. The idea is it's just like in life and in bhakti, we're trying to get out of that consumptive energy, which is really empty, and get into of what can I give? How can I connect with people? And truthfully, as parents or as adults, we have a responsibility. If we see it needs to be upgraded, we upgrade it, and we do it in a sweet way. So I think the holidays can be changed, or you can just let them go. And perhaps her parents, I think that's what she might be talking about, her parents, maybe they have got swept away by the tide of consumerism, and maybe that's all they know. So how can you inject something into it? And it could be just like reading the Bible of the birth of Christ, or it could be let's have some quality time together, and make it more often than just this one day a year. And as far as working in retail, that's a whole meditation to be, how can I be in this world and not of this world? And sometimes we're caught having to do very mundane things. And if we can separate ourselves from it and somehow figure, how can I give something special here? It could be just my exchange with the people. That could be something substantial to give a person. You can have a substantial, momentary conversation with the guy at the toll booth, and it could change that person's entire day. And everything that we do, even though it appears very mundane, can be very, very significant, and it can uplift somebody else. That's what I'd say about that. Upcycle the holiday, make it special, put some significance in it, put something that you've learned into it, or else we just become bitter at the holidays.
Is there anything good about the holiday? Like in your own opinion, like, did you see some good in the holiday itself?
Yeah, it's I think these holidays are great. There's some time off where you get to spend time with people that you love, and focus on, they're all like, it has a spiritual foundation. You can inject spirituality into it if it's been taken out of it.
Right. Good answer, Raghu. Good answer.
Oh, come on. All right, come on. Bing.
Good
4
answer.
people agreed with you. Survey says.
I like that. I like that. I like the idea of what you say, the bridge your wife is doing. Just like, hey, let's go ahead and plan this out. And make something good happen out of it.
She spent the whole month just doing something with the kids every day, wherever ages they're at, and it just
it had a Christmas flavor to it. The whole thing.
Yeah, it had a Christmas flavor to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was really sort of substantial things that kids remember. So.
All right. Next question.
Yeah. And you know what? It sort of goes into that question you just did, which was, how do you do sense gratification? Mm-hmm. There's various things that you can do that don't degrade, but it's not sense gratification. It's just living life and it's sattvic pleasures.
Yeah, it's kind of, we need holidays one way or another, right? That's something it's a social need, right?
Yeah.
So if it's there and everybody recognizes it and everybody's going to get off of work, and I get it, like that music can drive me crazy too. And if I was working in some retail store, I can see that, it could become very annoying.
Yeah.
But I love the way that you're seeing the good in it and saying, yeah, you gotta begin to focus on that more.
All right. So this is from our friend Ashley Rodriguez, and we know we've all been praying for her husband that got
Yeah.
in that motorcycle accident. And she was from New York, but I think she lives in Texas now.
That's right.
I hope this finds you well. On Wednesday, Raghunath said, the gunas are material things. They are not us. They are like the energies of the material world.
Mhm.
We are spirit. We are the soul. The soul is covered by these gunas. Is the sattvic guna also material? Right? There's sattva, rajas, and tamas.
Okay.
Sattva is the good one, the regulation, the going to bed early, the don't eat too much, you know.
Okay.
Is the soul the decision? Is the soul the decision maker? What is deciding between which guna to follow?
Mm.
For instance, I like coffee. I know coffee makes me follow the guna of rajas or
It's
passion.
evil. It's
Evil. I've been on retreats and trips where I've experienced the incredible power of starting my day off in the mode of goodness with mantra, asana, etc. But still in my life, day to day, I choose coffee. What is it internally that's making that decision? So it sounds like she philosophically understands.
Mhm.
I don't feel like the soul would decide that. So what makes that decision of passion over goodness? In observing myself and my struggles in the material world, I see something that sometimes knows better, the choices, something that picks the choice, something that enjoyed the choice, something that
Mhm.
asks, why did you
Yeah.
pick that? And then
Mhm.
something sitting there going, look at you being silly in this world. We'll get there little by little. What's that all about? The sheaths of the soul, the intelligence, the ego, etc. Thank all of you for the help making wisdom of the sages. It's a beacon of knowledgeable, sweet, endearing, joyous, and comforting light. Ashley Rodriguez, the Texan.
Texan.
Kaustubha, give me some light.
That was a great question, and I love that conversation that she describes at the end, because from a yogic perspective, you can understand everything that she's talking about. First, let me just quickly deal with the question: is sattvaguna material? Yes, sattvaguna is material. It's the idea is that the entire material world is made up of three different types of energy, and every object is composed of these three energies, but one of them will become prominent, and the influence of that guna will radiate from that object. And so the sattva guna, well, let's start the other way. The tamaguna, the mode of ignorance or darkness, it will when we come in contact with that energy, it generally influences our mind to become more lazy or destructive in some way. Whereas if we come in contact with the mode of passion, rajaguna, it influences the mind to feel, I'm not satisfied. I need something more. I got to get something that I don't have to find my satisfaction. Whereas if we come into contact with objects that are radiating the sattva guna, the mode of goodness or purity, the mind becomes conditioned to feel like, I'm okay. I don't need external things to be happy. I can, and the mind becomes clear and lucid. Now, even that is still not pure spiritual energy, but it's the platform from which we can enter into the spiritual realm, right? It's from that lucid, clear thinking where we become less controlled by the material energy, and it's the springboard. It's where the yogi wants to be. The yogi is practicing living in sattvaguna, and that's a whole bigger topic that we have and can still go into in more detail. But now let's get to the next question. She's saying, like, I think it's this mode of passion driving me or something like that, right? Because why am I choosing coffee? Now, I don't want to get in trouble with all the coffee drinkers. I find most people are coffee drinkers, but she's saying, yeah, I don't need this coffee, but I choose it. Why do I do that? Which reminds me, does that remind you of any scriptural passage, Raghu?
A scriptural passage?
Yeah. Why do I choose this when I know it's not good for me?
It's lust only, Arjuna, which is...
Yeah. Arjuna asked this question to Krishna. He says, this is in the 3rd chapter, text 36 of the Bhagavad Gita. He says, "Oh, Krishna, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if by force? Why did I just make that decision, even though I know it's the wrong decision?" Right? And what Krishna says is, he uses the word kama, right? Which is literally means desire. Often it's also translated as lust. But when we say lust here, let's not narrow it only to its sexual connotation.
It's desire, right?
Desire.
Lust means I want something.
Yes, I feel unfulfilled. I want something that I don't have. So Krishna responds by he's saying it's kama only. It's desire only. It's kama only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring enemy of this world, right? He says the wise living entity's pure consciousness, that's the soul, and she's mentioning all these things, right? There's the soul. She's asking, is the soul the decider? Is it the soul that says, I want the coffee?
Right.
Right? Now the soul desires, but that choice that coffee will make you happy, that's programmed in the mind, or you can say the manas, right? Now if we take the mind, we can say it's divided into three. There's the manas, which is programmed just to I like or I don't like. It's that simple. It's just pure programming. It's no contemplation. It's just like I want that, I don't want that. And through the experience that we have in life, our manas has been programmed to respond to certain things as favorable and certain things as unfavorable. So for Ashley right now, in her manas, there's a program that says coffee will give you satisfaction. It's just, so when the smell of coffee is there or the sight of coffee is there, that manas is registering like, this is good, this is good. You want that. Get it, by all means, get some of that. You're going to feel better when you do. But she's saying, but there's another voice going on saying, no, don't make that decision. That's called the intellect or the intelligence. In Sanskrit, it's called the buddhi, right? That's the reasoning part of the mind. And that's, in Ashley's case, that's been informed or programmed with information saying this is not a good decision, right? It's been informed by her own personal experience. It's been informed by maybe medical things that she's read or yogic things that she's read saying that this coffee isn't actually going to do me any good. And so there's a little conversation going on there. Don't do it. I'm going to do it. So that's what's happening. This is yoga now, right? This is where yoga gets interesting and serious. And this is what the Bhagavad Gita is talking about. Now, Srila Prabhupada, he wrote in the commentary to one of those verses in that towards the end of the third chapter of the Gita, he says when a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust, into desire, material desire, in the association of the mode of passion. Or in other words, the sense of love of God, which is our true nature, becomes transformed into lust as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Right? So by nature, the soul, it desires to, it loves and it desires to please God, but that desire gets warped in contact, it gets transformed in contact with the mode of passion. And the mind is getting programmed at every step, that manas. Again, when you think of the manas, think of it as if you're working in the world with a computer, just like when we pull up a computer and like all kind of advertising comes up and that advertising is saying, this is what you need, It's almost like that. Our mind has been programmed through its experience to think I need the coffee. I'm going to be happy when I get the coffee. Now you have your intellect and it's saying you don't need that coffee. So the question is, which one's going to win? And that's why yogis, it goes back to Uddhava Sandesh's questions. They regulate the senses so that I'm not going to let you take over. Even though you're yelling, get coffee now, I'm going to regulate that on one level or another. Maybe I'm going to drink less coffee. And then maybe I'm ultimately going to regulate, I'm not going to drink any coffee. Right? That's what yoga does. It regulates the senses. And how am I going to have the power to do that? I'm going to build my intellect. I'm going to be sharper in how I understand it. So that intellect, the yogi operates straight from the intellect, right? It's like, just like you described, Raghunath, sometimes like you wake up and you jump right out of bed, right? Were you telling us that a few days ago or a week ago? Or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So in other words, the
I am
mind.
a jumper out of bed.
You do that?
I do jump
Yeah.
out of bed.
So in other words, the mind generally says, just lie around here for some time, just, but the intellect says, you know what, your day's going to be better if you just jump up right now. Don't listen to that mind, and so that you're operating based on the intellect, right? I know what's right. I know what's helpful. That's the response. That's the info that I'm going to respond to. And if you do that, what it can do is it can gradually reprogram the manas. So where the manas begins to say, actually, I like jumping out of bed, and there is no happiness in lying around, and being lazy. The manas can become reprogrammed to say, you know what, there is no real pleasure in drinking this coffee. I don't need it. I'm spending a lot of money on it. It's actually doing me some harm. I can let go of it if the intellect is strong. So, yoga has a lot to do with strengthening the intellect through contemplating the truth that is put forward through these texts like Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. You contemplate it, you reflect on it, you hear it, and you build your intellect with that information. And then yoga means with that strength, I begin to regulate my senses. And gradually you begin to reprogram that computer of the mind, right? So that now your decisions are being based on spiritual truth, on spiritual knowledge. And that's conducive for the progress in yoga. And so, we always go back to that definition. Yoga is a practice which empowers one to overcome the obstacle of the mind for the purpose of the self experiencing its own true nature. And so, yeah, we all have our minds that are programmed to think, I want to watch Netflix, and Uddhava Sandesh is coming forward with that. I need that to be happy, and Ashley's saying, my mind's been programmed to think I need coffee to be happy, and the yogi realizes I don't need any of those things to be happy. Here's my path based on my, how my intellect has been informed with yogic knowledge. I'm going to regulate my senses. I'm not going to let my mind be an obstacle. I'm not going to let it take over me. I'm going to take it over, and that's called yoga. So let me just wrap up by just reading this this little section in the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna asks, by what is one impelled to act in ways that they don't want to act, even as if we're engaged by force? And Krishna responds, it's kama only, Arjuna, which is born from contact with the mode of passion. He says, the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by this kama, which is never satisfied, and it burns like fire. No matter what you get, you always want more. And he says, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this kama. Through them, kama covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders them. So it means I got to be careful what I expose my senses to, what I expose my manas to, and what I expose my intellect to. He says, therefore, Arjuna, O best of the Bhartas, in the beginning curb this kama by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. The working senses are superior to dull matter. The mind is higher than the senses. The intelligence is still higher than the mind. And the soul is even higher than the intelligence. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as kama. It's all there in the Gita.
Thank you, Krishna and Arjuna.
Yeah.
It's all there.
It's all there.
Mental engineering.
Yeah.
Engineering the mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
You ready for another question?
Yeah, this is a very, it seems like a simple question. It's a very deep question. It's
Okay.
very, I really appreciate it. Me and my wife just sat there all morning. I read it to her and we just went back and forth and dissected this thing. Yeah.
Okay, this is coming from Jason Sties.
Regular listener.
He writes, a question for Raghu. Why Raghu? Why not me?
Yeah. Why me?
He says, a question for Raghu. You have a long history, Raghu, of speaking.
Got a history.
Of speaking on expectations.
Oh, because I wrote a song called Expectations when I was 19.
Did you?
On the first Youth of Today record.
Oh.
It was sort
How
of
does that
like,
one go?
Yeah, I was
Was it
like,
like that?
stop expecting me to be who you want me to be. I'm going to be whoever I want to be. Something like that.
Okay. So you have a long history of speaking on expectations, from the song to the podcast. I even remember a Facebook post in which you described having certain expectations on your children can be torturous for them. Yet at the same time, we see high expectations of ourselves if we need high expectations for ourselves if we want to grow. Would you please discuss the concept of expectations from a wide vantage point? We do need to turn the screws. And when do we need to turn the screws? And when should we ease up on expectations?
Yeah, it can be completely overbearing to raise kids with expectations. And it can be also very narrow. And a lot of it's coming through the filter of that parent's own values. I value you getting, like, for example, I never did anything with my life, so I'm putting these expectations on you. I never really accomplished anything in the academic world, so I'm putting these expectations on you. And I want to live vicariously through my child, and it's a huge weight. And instead of like looking, and it's also a very narrow concept of success. And then we do the same thing with ourselves. We repeatedly often can have these expectations for ourselves where we beat ourselves up. Why aren't I at this stage of my life? I should be doing this. I'm 40 and I'm not doing this already, or I have no kids and I'm getting too old. And we start to beat ourselves up on a regular basis. So I think the idea is there's a hope, but we really have to sort of, if we are the person, like the parent, there's got to be an education in the spiritual truths. It really goes down to educating ourselves. We got to have to understand what our children actually are. And they're not to fill some void in my heart, but my children are spirit souls. And therefore, they have to be fulfilled spiritually. And that's what I should want for them. And that may manifest in so many different ways. But if I'm got a watermelon seed and I've got these expectations that this watermelon seed is going to start giving me plums, that's going to be a problem for me and the watermelon seed. So at the same time, when I know, well, actually, this will give me watermelons, and therefore there's many ways to go about cultivating it, nurturing it, giving it the appropriate sunlight. Should I do it in a greenhouse? Should it be spaced right next to other plants? What's a good companion plant with a watermelon? Companion plants. But anyway, that changes everything. So I think there's a great hope in appreciating the values that you want to instill in the child and in ourselves. But it really boils down to this relationship which is in the Bhagavad Gita, which Krishna teaches. It's really such elementary teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. And I can explain this in one humiliating story.
Love the humiliating stories. Is this
You want some more humiliating stories?
The Calcutta Book Fair one?
The Calcutta, not the Calcutta Book Fair. That was the real humiliating story. This was the story that I was, as monks, every December, we did this marathon where we go out and distribute books on the street, like a real Hare Krishna. And I didn't like to do it. I really didn't like to go up.
Hold it. Are you about to blame me as the guy with the expectations?
No. Because Stuba was really good. He'd just walk up to people. Hey, you want to buy a Bhagavad Gita? Stuff like that. For me, it was like, oh man,
but are you saying that
one of these guys on the street? I've become
imposing...
a Hare Krishna, like peddling books on the street. I never wanted to be this, and now I'm this. So I was like, but I said, you know what? For the month of December, I'm just gonna do it. Okay. And it takes a lot on my ego to put yourself in a vulnerable situation where people are like, "Get out of here, you loser! Get out! Who do you think?" There's a lot of people who are just like, "Leave me alone. Get lost." Americans
can be unkind.
Can be very unkind, cruel, yell at you, and I was just like, all right, I'm going to do this. And I psyched myself into doing it. And we were at the Philadelphia Union Street station. And so people are waiting.
That's like a big station.
Yeah,
right?
it's
That's
one
like
thing if you're on a street corner and you're like, excuse me, sir. And they're like, leave me alone. Get lost. Screw yourself. And they just sort of walk right by you. And so I think I did that the first day. or the first couple days. But then we went to the train station. I was like, "Excuse me, sir," and they're like, "Get lost," but they don't walk away because they're waiting for a train. So I'm standing there. I was like, "Ugh." I just collapsed. I internally just collapsed. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And so I got on the phone and I called Satyaraj Prabhu, who's like a mentor for me. And I said, Satyaraj, I can't do this. These people, they're like humiliating me. And then I'm just standing there and I can't take this. And he said something very beautiful. He said,
What did he say?
do you know, Krishna doesn't care how many Bhagavad Gitas you sell.
He doesn't? You're like, really?
I was like, really? He just wants to know if you want to serve him today. And I was like, oh, okay. I can do that. I do want to serve Krishna today. And when he just framed it like that, I was like, I don't care what this guy thinks of me. I don't care if he buys the Bhagavad Gita or doesn't buy a Bhagavad Gita or gives nothing. He just wants to see where I'm at. And I really want to serve Krishna today. And I ended up selling 25 Bhagavad Gitas that day. And it was very, just knowing that there's nowhere to go with this. What do I want for my kids? I want them to have good character. And like I said, I don't care if they're as dumb as stone. I don't care if they're engineers or IT specialists. I want them to be good people in the world that cares about other people. Their hearts are soft. That's a win for me. That's the home run. And in my own self, what is my success? Is it to make a certain amount of money a certain year? No, it's how can I treat my family? How can I treat my, how am I raising my children? How do I take care of my own self, my own body? How do I relate to other people who are in need? To me, that's a win. That's the metric I want. Those are the things that are valuable. So,
and then I was going to say,
go ahead.
How about the expectations on oneself?
Yeah. So, how I treat people. Can I give people time? Do I have time for them? Can I go out of my way and care for somebody? Despite I'm not going to get anything back. This guy's got nothing to offer me. How do I treat them? How do people feel when they hang around me? For me, that's like a valuable thing.
And those are things you can do whether you have money, whether you have intelligence, whether you have everyone can kind of be a good person.
That's a win. That's a win for me. And that's the metric. I don't have to get to a certain amount financially to feel like, what a failure I am. And I never graduated with this. I never went to school for that. I wasted my time. I'm not going to do that, beat myself up, Those are the things that aren't going to matter on a deathbed. When people are doing your eulogy, they're not going to be like, well, he collected a lot of cool things. They're going to say how this guy treated me. He was always, did he bring some light into your life,
Right.
Anyway.
Thank you.
Good question. Expectations.
Good answer. You going to sing the song first or what?
This is a loud song. Sarah Koretsky's got a question for you.
Okay.
She's hardcore. I apologize if this has been addressed before, but I only remember deity worship was brushed upon this a little. Okay, so here's the question. In the Midrash or rabbinic narrative, Abraham smashes the idols in his father's shop because God told him not to worship idols. Yeah, some people really hate worshiping.
Some whole
some entire religions hate the concept of this is our God. Abraham wanted to earn not only God's attention, but enter all devotion. I'm not sure what she means by that.
I guess in other words, he wanted to go real deep, not just whatever. Yeah.
Jewish people have been taught that idolatry is the ultimate betrayal of one God. I know in other religions, a form of God is well accepted, but as far as rabbinic scholars are concerned, this is a matter of ethics as a monotheistic religion. That's where they draw the line, I guess. I want to understand the difference between idolatry and deity worship. Any insight would be great. I got a feeling the rabbis would think there's nothing different, but I'm not positive.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I don't know I don't know one rabbis. Any insight would be great. I have pretty extensive knowledge of the Midrash. What's the Midrash? Do you know?
I believe it's commentaries on the Torah, on
Okay.
the Old Testament.
But not the Krishna conscious perspective. Maybe I should have prefaced the question that I was in the Portland temple and a Prabhupada disciple came up to me without knowing me at all. She said that the deity worship is not the same thing as worshiping idols. She went on to say, in my heart, Krishna wanted me to tell you that. Oh, she had like a little Krishna miracle.
But that's what she says here.
That's pretty amazing. I asked her how she knew I was thinking about that, and she told me Krishna told her. Raghunath, this might be a Krishna. Oh, she did say that. Raghunath, this might be a Krishna miracle.
That's a Krishna miracle.
That is a Krishna miracle. That's a Krishna miracle, but I thought it was a Krishna miracle. I think that was a full-on Krishna miracle.
I'm more skeptical. Do you know how I interpret that?
Why?
I interpret, this is my guess, my educated guess, that this that this devotee,
Sarah? Oh.
no, that this devotee that walked up to Sarah, my guess is that she's Jewish, and that she recognized Sarah as a member of the tribe. And we're seeing her standing there looking at the deities. She said, I know exactly what's going on in her head. And then she said it.
I
Now,
know,
you
but
could say that that's Krishna telling
That
her to
is
do it.
because Krishna put that person. She didn't have to be in the temple room at the
But
same
perhaps
time.
less miraculous.
She inspired her in the heart, and she actually went and spoke it. I'm going to call it a Krishna miracle,
Okay.
Sarah.
All right. So to me, the
Come
main question here, the main question is, what's the difference between the worship of the deity, which is called, in Sanskrit, is called, Archana Seva, as compared to what the Judeo-Christian tradition calls idol worship. Is there a difference? Is there, And, I hear people answer this in different ways, right? Like sometimes I hear devotees say, no, it's not idol worship. Well, in one sense, it is, it depends what you call it. Yeah, it's like, it depends what there's two definitions for the word idol. One is an image or representation of a god used as an object of worship. And then another one is a person or thing that is greatly admired, loved, or revered. So I think, if you call idol worship that any form you offer your worship to, well, under that definition, then we're doing idol worship, right? But if you see idol worship as, and I think this gets to the question where she was talking about the ultimate betrayal to God, when you worship someone else as God, then you could call that idol worship.
I think that's real idol worship right there.
Yeah, and so then I would say we don't perform idol worship, right? And so when you get these biblical examples of people who are making forms of different types of different conceptions of God, and Abraham was coming in there and smashing them, he was, in my mind, the more important thing was not that it was a form, but that it was a form other than the real form, the authorized form. You get it?
I get it.
So to me, that's the essential difference. But now the fact is that Christian, Jewish, Muslim, all of these Judeo-Christian, traditions.
Abrahamic.
Thank you, Abrahamic. We were talking about Abraham right here, right?
Yeah.
So they all have, like, it's been drilled in very deep that any kind of worship of form is really problematic. Now, how do I look at this? If you want to know how I look at this, and I'm going to say this, I don't mean it to be insulting in any way, but it's just the way that I see it, is that you give how rules are understood. For instance, and I want to preface this by saying I'm not meaning to speak in any kind of condescending way here. But we all have to step back and look at all these traditions and try to piece the pieces together. And when I do that, I say, rules are understood differently and presented differently to children as compared to adults. And so, like, you create rules to protect the children, right? Like, you make a rule like, don't touch the stove, right? Don't get near it. Don't turn it on,
Don't
that
ever
is
play in
bad.
the road. Don't ever play
Yeah.
in the road.
Yeah, that is bad. Now, so then the child might think anybody that touches that stove is wrong and they're bad and it's evil and it's, but no, it was a rule to protect you from hurting yourself. Whereas a person that understands more and is more capable can use that stove in an effective way, right? So if you had a certain civilization of people and they had a very simplistic understanding of God or the gods, and you could see that it was manifesting in a way that was unhealthy for them, they're all just creating these forms and worshiping these forms that have nothing to do with God, then you could come forward and say, stop this, right? No more of this idol worship, leave it behind. Whereas when I look at what's presented in the Vedic tradition, I see I see that it captures the essence of, for instance, everything Jesus was teaching in the New Testament and what I feel is the real essence of the Old Testament as well. But it's presenting it in a way that I find to be a bit more sophisticated in the sense that it's going to break, just like the conversations that we've been having. Here's the difference between the manas and the buddhi, the mind and the intellect, and what yoga is. And when you begin to understand how the mind works, it gives you a whole breakdown of how the mind works and how it's the mind that's standing in between you and your relationship with God, because it's got you programmed with all kind of desires. So then it says this practice of creating a form, an authorized form, a form that actually represents God, as he's been elaborately described in this literature. And when it's approached with the right mood, it becomes an object of meditation, an object in which you can engage your eyes and your ears and your hands and everything in a way that takes your mind always towards God. And when we practice it, we see the result, right? Like even Raghunath, you sometimes share that, like, your children become enthusiastic. Their mind is going to God when they're out in nature and they say, hey, look at these flowers. We could bring these flowers and offer them to God. Right? It's getting their mind focused on God rather than focused on satisfying the senses of the body. It's effective. It's doing the work. It actually works. We know it works.
It actually works. That's what it
actually
really
works.
boils down.
Yeah.
As foreign as it is, as condemned as it was and misunderstood, it actually works.
It actually works. So that's how I would look at like these really strong condemnations. It was a particular time and circumstance to a particular group of people that just like, hey, you got to stop that. No, it's not working for you. This isn't working.
Do you think they also, maybe they just didn't understand? It's like, wait a second, you should be worshiping God, but you're worshiping a stone as God.
Yeah.
And they just didn't understand. No, you don't understand. There's much more to it than that.
Yeah,
and therefore, I'm
that's
going to
another
condemn
way to
these
look. Yeah.
guys. They just didn't understand it.
Right. That's how I see it. Yeah. And then again, when you really get into when you go into depth into Archana Seva, you can find such beauty and such real powerful, effective meditative practice in it, that it becomes really, it's powerful, like as an individual, and one can go very deep. And we also see that it's a way that a whole community benefits, right? Because a whole community together can connect with God in that type of form. And it is really effective. And just when you know it, like when you practice it and you've experienced it, you know it. So that would be my answer to Sarah.
I think that's a good answer, my friend.
All right. You gonna do one more, or do we have time? We're a little over time. But you don't have the music queued up. You have to learn to cue the music before the show, and then it'll be ready for you when the end of the show comes.
There we go. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Hey, if you're listening on Facebook, we do this every day. You can email Mara at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com, and you can join us live on Zoom if you like. Also wanted to make an announcement. Mara, when's Madhu's class? Is it tomorrow?
Tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time.
Tomorrow, 6 p.m. Madhu, our great friend, a great teacher. He's part of our team here.
Mm-hmm.
He's giving a class on
Bhakti Q&A. So if you have
Bhakti
questions,
Q&A, and he's a great guy. You would love him. Hey, also he's doing Ayurvedic free Ayurvedic consultation, kirtan consultation, because he's a really great kirtan guy. If you want a free consultation with him, just email wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com and put Madhu in the subject line, and then we'll get that over to him and connect you with him.
MADHU.
MADHU. Thanks for everybody for joining us on Question Day, and we're excited for our guest. The professor is coming tomorrow.
Professor.
Mahamuni. If you have some good questions on what's it all about, atheism, stuff like that, great.
I call him Moondog.
Yeah, we call him Moondog. His name's Mahamuni. You can't call him Moondog.
I call him Moondog.